I'm going to show you how a couple of small changes can dramatically increase the sense of depth in your paintings. You know that as things get further away, they get bluer and lighter. Let's look at a couple of Monets as examples. Here we see a simple example of warmer, more detailed foreground contrasting with what atmosphere does in making it cooler and bluer as it goes into the distance. Here you see the same thing but compressed. You see the quality of that tree warm with detail, and there it's cooling off. There it's cooling off and there's less information, and by here the edges, the detail, the temperature has blued out dramatically, and it's like there's just veils shrouding each layer as it moves back in space to give us that sense of depth. But the thing is, if you get that veil too dense, what happens is you get nothing for the viewer to look at. We just lose interest and it flattens your painting. And it's a common student problem. So I'm going to show you how just a couple of touches of color can create a dynamism between foreground and background that dramatically increases the depth, the sense of depth in your painting. So this is Ian Roberts and Mastering Composition. Let's have a look. Let's look at the student image, and we have an interesting foreground, nice sense of sunlight coming across there. But in the background, the colors have been made so soft that it looks like it's misty back there. More than just atmospheric, it's actually, there's a haze. So I adjusted this with Procreate, and I asked the students permission that I could, and just put a little hit of color there, differentiated just a little bit more that those two are on two different planes, touch of blue back there, and just a touch of pink on the horizon. And now you see that we're brought back there. It's just very subtle. But now we have an interplay between foreground and background that adds much more depth to the sense of the image. Now in the second image, we have a very light mass here. And again, back here, things have gotten very soft and sort of misty. And what it does is it pulls our attention into the foreground and doesn't really drag us back into the depth of the image. But look what happens if we just darken this a little bit and then just add a little bit of color here and define these shapes a little bit more and that value a little bit more. And again, we're released from here and brought back to there. So what it does is it again gives us a better sense of the foreground and the background and the depth in the image. So this image, the first thing that I notice is it really feels like the painting starts here. That just feels like maybe it's a piece of paper behind it. So I would crop that off. And the other thing is there's a really nice light shape here and a dark shape here. And I find that tree on a 45-degree angle a little distracting, so I'd probably get rid of that. But the main thing I want to show you is what happens if you just put a little line of color back there in terms of creating depth. Now, I've cropped it off here. I've gotten rid of that so that this kind of stands out again. But the main thing is I've just added that line of blue there. Actually, there's a slightly darker blue that I've added there on the horizon as well. But you see the effect that that has on this nicely, richly articulated foreground. We're then pulled into the background so that there's this interplay between foreground and background, and it manufactures a stronger sense of depth. But you need to be careful with how intense that gets, because if it's too much, it just pops away from the image and removes itself from the illusion. But if you get just the right amount, it falls into the illusion and pulls us back into the painting. Now this is an interesting sort of Greek scene that I liked. But again, I found that I was getting held in the foreground and there wasn't really enough back there to engage us with the full potential of what the depth could be in the painting. So I did two things. In the foreground, I reduced the value of that and I got rid of that because both of those things are really holding our attention in the foreground. And then I added some color here. And you see, by releasing that attention in the foreground, just a little thin line of pink, little line of blue, another little line of blue there, you see how it just pulls our attention ever so slightly back there and gives us a much richer interplay between foreground and background, and really helps us feel the depth of the whole potential of the illusion. Now I want to shift to a slightly different idea. This is a student painting done in black, white, and yellow ochre, and I want to look at the quality of edges, because you can see that there's a pathway leading back to here, but look at the quality of the edges. And the quality of the edges, I mean, look at the quality of the contrast between light and dark, all the way through here, all of it competing with that pathway that I'm talking about. Because the edges are what hold our attention. And if you have them here and here and here and here and here, our attention is being pulled by so many different contrasts that we don't really know where to look. But if I reduce those edges by reducing the contrast, just making the lights a little darker there so that they release our attention here and bring us to the sort of the added touch of color right there, and I've reduced the values here, I've reduced the edges all the way through here, so that we're sort of forced, which is the point of compositional structure really, we're forced to follow the path that you have in mind. And then that little hit of green field back there just to pull us one step further. Of course, if we were using blue, we could make that more blue and we would have another step that would pull us further back again. But you can see how now your attention is following here in a much simpler way by control of the edges. Here we have a well-structured composition, and you can sort of see the sense that we're supposed to be going back to here. But the problem is that these lights all the way through here are grabbing so much attention, and the darks in here, that just like in the last image, we're not really going back here. We're being held by the quality of the edges all through here. So look what happens when I reduce the value here and just add a little bit of color back there and a touch of blue into that. So now you can see by darkening all this, we're releasing the edges, we're releasing the grip of the foreground, and we just naturally find ourselves kind of coming back to here, which is the intention. So we have an interesting foreground, midground, and then a play into the background. And lastly, let's look at interior. Now, if you were painting this, you would obviously want the viewer to come into here, and you would want the rest of the picture to sort of orchestrate and support that. The problem is the strong edge here of that figure's head is competing, or is this edge is competing with that. It's too light here, and that edge along the bottom is holding a lot of attention, you can see, and it kind of pulls our attention down this way. The other thing is the light is coming, is pouring down this way. But the problem is, if you look at it, your attention just kind of drifts out the top because there's nothing to stop it from doing that. It just kind of goes out there. So I did two things. I put a sort of a soft value here to contain that, so our attention was going in this way. And I darkened this so that our attention goes this way. So that we're not getting rid of the light up there, and we're not getting rid of the table, we're just balancing the edges and the way our attention is held in the picture plane. And there you can see, by softening that edge, darkening this, putting sort of a haze of value around there, the whole image is brought into here, and yet the rest of the image is supporting it nicely. If you found this discussion of structure and edges and colors helpful, you might find that my book, Mastering Composition, will help you build the foundation for dramatically improving your paintings. It's sold over 50,000 copies at this point, and it addresses really the painting itself. The other book that I've written, Creative Authenticity, deals more with you, the artist, your inner journey. Both are available on Amazon, or perhaps preferably at your local bookstore. So I hope you've enjoyed this month's video. I'll see you next month, September 4th, My very best wishes to you for the rest of the summer. All the very best, and bye for now.